This is an election you can't take a pass on. This election you have to be engaged in. We have seen over the past 4 years, but even more so over the past several months, what this president is capable of, what he is willing to do to get his way, to win elections, and to move forward his radical agenda. The abuse of power that we've seen from this president just in the last few months, everything from unilaterally changing the immigration laws in this country. The President of the United States should not be able to stand up and give a speech and change the law of the country.
Right.
We have a document called the Constitution. It's the people's Constitution. And the president has contempt for the people's Constitution. He has showed it repeatedly. He did on the immigration issue by saying we are now not going to consider 800,000 people here in this country, here illegal anymore. He couldn't get it through the Congress, so he's going to unilaterally change the law. He's going to say to the people of Arizona after the Supreme Court ruled that police could, in fact, question people they detained as to whether they were here in this country legally or not. And the president said, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I don't care what the state of Arizona says. I am not going to enforce that law. I don't care what Bill Clinton and the vast majority of House and Senate members did back in 1996 when they passed the Defense of Marriage Act. The president says, I'm not going to defend that law. I don't care what President Clinton and 70 senators in the United States Senate and an overwhelming majority of House members when they passed welfare reform. And the president just said a couple weeks ago that he's going to take the two provisions in that bill that we wrote, that we said, because I helped write. Two things we said you cannot waive, Mr. President. You cannot waive time limits on welfare because welfare should not be a permanent dependency program. It is not good for people. And number two, we really want to help people. We tell them that it's temporary, we're willing to give you a hand up, and we tell them that in order to receive the benefits, you've got to work. And what happened? Almost two-thirds of the people who are on welfare, the rolls dropped by two-thirds. The welfare rolls now, in spite of the fact there are more people in America, in spite of the fact we have the highest rates of participation in food stamps, Medicaid, S-chip, you name every poverty program there is, we're at record levels of participation except one, welfare. Something called TANF, which was the replacement of AFDC. That is still way down. Why? Because there's a time limit and a work requirement. What happened when we put those in place? Yes, the rolls went down. Did poverty go up? Did people not find jobs? No. Poverty levels went to the lowest level in the history of the country since it's been measured. And people went to work. Children saw their moms go off to work and understood the value of work, understood the value of training and education, which was required to get some of that work. We transformed. And what's the president doing? Well, 2 years ago, he gave a waiver for any work requirement on food stamps. And now almost half the people in this country on some sort of dependency program. Well, now, last couple of weeks ago, he gave a waiver to something that can't be waived, which is the work requirement. Why would he do that? Unless he wants to gut the work requirement and tell people they don't have to work. He says, no, I'm just giving the Secretary of Health and Human Services the ability to change the program if the states want to. Anybody trust Catherine Sebelius? Anybody out here? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a president who broke the law.
That's right.
Who broke the law. that waiver. You know what they said? Well, because it's mentioned in a section that allows waiver, although it specifically says you can't, because it's mentioned, we're going to include it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a president who has no respect for the Constitution, no respect for the laws of this country, and most importantly, no respect for the American people, and he must be defeated in November.